Welcome into the Sporting News Studios for our preseason look at college basketball. Today we're talking about the Big East Conference as we know it now. Obviously it's changing. Mike DeCourcy, Ryan Fagan, our college basketball writers. And how does this season look to you guys knowing the changes that are coming to the Big East?
Well, I think it's an exciting season in the Big East, but also a bit of a sad one. I mean, Ryan attended the most recent Big East tournament and knows the funereal atmosphere that was there through part of that. And I think this will even be more so. I mean, Syracuse was a founding member, really one of the rocks of the organization. And then Pitt came along a few years later and especially in the last 10 years has become a huge player in the Big East. So to see them on their way out is a big difference in the way the league structured and competes. Last year, when you think about it, though, that Big East final, Cincinnati, Louisville, that's kind of the new Big East. I mean, that's where the heart of the Big East is now.
Yeah, it really is, but there was a big difference, a drop-off when Syracuse lost and didn't get to that final at Madison Square Gardens. The buzz kind of went from this huge just momentum of, Syracuse and being, as they call themselves, New York's team, to them potentially being in the final, to them getting knocked out, and then all of a sudden at Louisville and Cincinnati. It wasn't exactly the old Big East, but like Mike said, I mean, this is the new Big East. These are the teams that are there now. It's not going to be the Syracuse and the Notre Dame type teams there.
What do you think these teams, the Pitts and the Syracuse, do they have a target on their back this year?
I certainly do, and I know Ryan believes that as well. That it's when they go on the road, they're going to feel it, especially in places like Connecticut, where look, Cincinnati, they might be sad to see them go, but they were barely partners. I mean, they've only been together for 5 or 6 years. But UConn, they were there at the beginning, and Villanova and Georgetown.
Right.
Yeah, and there's certainly a level of fan upset there with teams that are kind of, because they're looked at as, Syracuse and Pitt are the teams that are looked at as the scapegoats for the changing Big East. The fans in Connecticut, they didn't want the Big East to change. They didn't want this massive of people. And now they're kind of looking at these two schools that are on their way out, in addition to, Notre Dame and West Virginia already being gone, as the reasons for this change.
Now, obviously from the outside, it feels like sad and a bit of a negative for the conference when you lose marquee programs, but is there maybe an upside or a positive to it at all?
I've had a lot of conversations with Mick Cronin, the coach at Cincinnati, about this, and a lot of them because there have been so many teams that have left over time, and he's reiterated a few times that it was very hard for a program like Cincinnati to get any oxygen in the room, so to speak. If they beat Georgetown, it was Georgetown lost. If they beat Pitt, it was Pitt lost. And they made the Sweet 16 last year. They've won in the league now the last couple. And they haven't really felt like they were celebrated as much as the others were lamented. And I think he feels like now with those teams gone, there can be a little bit of a shift of focus.
So in a way, they're part of the core now of the Big
Exactly.
East, and so were always seen more on the periphery no matter what they did.
Yes, and I think that he feels like that will help them competitively. And also, I can say this, from living in Cincinnati 2 years ago, Xavier lost to Cincinnati by, I think, 25 points, somewhere in their inner city game.
Right.
And then they went in the Atlantic 10 and won 15 out of 16 games. And then Cincinnati went in the Big East, and it was life and death every possession. And the Cincinnati fans had no fun, and the Xavier fans had a party every night. So I think that getting some more weaker teams in the league can maybe make it a little bit better for the good teams.
Interesting. And speaking of the teams in the league, let's just talk about who you think are the best teams right now in the Big East this year.
Well, I think you start with Louisville. You look at the run that Rick Pitino's team had through the Big East tournament into the Final Four, and they bring so many of those guys back. Guys like Peyton Siva, Gorgie Dang, they have their point guard, they have their big men, they have guys like Shane Bohannon and Wayne Blackshear, who are big, athletic, strong guys who can shoot from the outside, they can take the ball to the inside. They really are a team that is set up very well to handle different styles. If they run into somebody that's going to run and gun, they've got the athletes. If they run into someone who's going to slow it down, Peyton Siva can kind of adjust the offense that way. And I think Rick Pitino has a really great roster this year.
And how about a team to challenge them?
If there's going to be a challenge, it'll probably be Syracuse. And they've got a great rivalry, Syracuse and Louisville. It's one of the few matchups that Jim Boeheim has struggled with. Louisville's had a lot of success with them over the years, the past 5 or so years. And so that should be a nice little going away party, the two of them getting together and trying to decide the league. But I think it's going to be very hard for anyone to take Louisville down. They just seem to have an edge in talent over most and an edge in experience over just about all.
Right.
And last question, is there a team in the league that maybe you see as a bit of a Cinderella or possibly could go on some kind of a run, open people's eyes this year?
Yeah, I think that you look at what Buzz Williams has done with Marquette, and there's so many examples of his teams exceeding their perceived level of talent, the way that he gets them motivated. So I think, obviously, they lost some very talented players last year. Guys like Jay Crowder, they're going to be hard to replace. But Jay Crowder wasn't exactly a top 10 recruit coming in either. And I think that we've learned from Buzz Williams that you never really want to count his teams out.
All right, there you go. That's our look at the Big East Conference from Mike DeCourcy and Ryan Fagan. I'm Tom Vandervoort. Thanks for watching.